Hello, good morning. Well, it's morning for me anyway. I wanted to try painting these, I guess I'll call them like basket bubbles over a red background. And almost immediately, I've decided that it's the wrong red. I chose the wrong red. And that decision is, or that opinion is further confirmed by like how it looks painting this yellow ochre kind of burnt umber shapes on there. I was just the whole time. Honestly, for most of this painting, I was just thinking, this is terrible. These look horrible. But I just kept going because that's often how it is sometimes. You just think something is awful. And sometimes it is. And then also sometimes it's not. So it's not always something that you can trust in my experience. But I was like, these colors are not working. Like it's as is. Pretty gross. Um, but yeah, I sort of figured out the basket pattern pretty well, but it starts to get kind of stodgy and milky and again lacks the kind of like fluid brightness of that very first woven shape I made in the last painting. So that's something to figure out, you know? Yeah, sometimes just the best things happen by accident and you can't redo them. I'm going to keep trying, but in this one, I really was focusing more on understanding the pattern um, and continuing to kind of mess with different color combinations. And, you know, yeah, this one was like, nope, this isn't working. This is what I love about oils, that they stay wet for a while and you can just kind of blur your mistakes and start over. Back to square one, back to basics. I feel like that's what I've been doing this late spring and early summer is this kind of these like simple activities. Like one of my favorite things to do when I get home from work, if I don't have my son with me, is to hop on my bike and ride to the neighborhood pool and swim a few laps and then come home. And, bonus points if I leave my phone at home. But my neighborhood is this kind of very, um, tightly packed, uh, repeated houses, classic housing development. And, the architecture is nothing special. No offense to the architects on record, but it's so suburban. It's so like aggressively suburban. And I ride my bike through the streets to the pool, and I am aware that I am, a woman approaching middle age, and I wear my dorky one piece suit and swim 10 laps before I get tired and come home. And it's not grand. I think that's why it's so sweet. Like it feels like I can just do this little routine and no one's going to pay attention. No one needs to pay attention. Though, of course, I'm telling you about it now, so I don't know. But I don't know. It's just, it's simple. It feels simple and sweet. And it feels like making a PB&J sandwich and watching TV. Like it just feels like something, maybe because it feels sort of like a childlike activity, you know. Riding your bike to the pool is maybe something I did a lot in childhood. And so it kind of harkens back to that. This basket is sort of looking like a squid right now, which is kind of cool. Uh, this one is probably the most successful one. At least it appears to have, I think, the most dimension um, of all the baskety shapes that emerge in this painting. And yeah, I gotta work on like figuring out how much white to use when I'm mixing again to make things not look so stodgy. Anyway, we are about to get to the part where it starts to get real weird, which is the part where I start to paint a shark in the bottom right hand corner of this painting. And as far as subject matter, it's somewhat new to me. I started drawing and painting sharks sometime in the last few months. I, like a lot of people, have had a long standing relationship of fear related to sharks. We all grew up watching Jaws and all the other shark movies, and they they are such a great symbol and vessel for our fear. They represent, us being in an unfamiliar environment, and obviously the idea of being eaten is horrifying. And I I think for those reasons and perhaps some other mysterious reasons, I have noticed in the past that I will go through phases of being morbidly fascinated with news stories wherein someone is killed by a shark. And it only happens a few times a year, and sometimes there's like a really big one in the news. Sometimes I'll just go looking for it as well. It's one of those things where maybe this has happened like 2 or 3 times in the last 5 years, where I become a little bit obsessed and I'm going down internet rabbit holes, reading every news story I can and reading about the person and reading about the species of shark and having weird dreams about it and kind of shuddering in horror and imagining the whole thing. And I don't really know what that's about, quite frankly. And it hasn't actually happened in a while, um, which I think is a good sign. But I will still occasionally have a dream where I am being attacked by a shark and I wake up screaming. This happens maybe, I don't know, once every 3 or 4 months. And so for whatever reason, sharks do just have this hold on me in a way that I've just decided to try and incorporate here. Something I've tried to look at and I don't know, explore and see what it feels like to do this and see what it feels like to stare at these reference images that are, quite shocking and kind of scary. And I don't know. One of my favorite writers of today is Alain de Botton, and he talks about how an artist is a little bit like a small child that you are trying to walk to the park. Um, and I don't know if you've ever taken a walk with a small child, but they are much less concerned with the destination as they are with every little interesting thing that they see on the sidewalk or on the side of the road. And he says, an artist is someone who says, I've just been detained by something a little unusual. And I love that. I love that notion. I'm just occasionally detained by sharks. And, I realized something not too long ago. I got married in a small beach town in Florida called New Smyrna Beach, just south of Daytona. And they never really make the national news, but there are a ton of shark attacks there. They're all small sharks, so they're never fatal. But technically, I married my first husband in the shark bite capital of the world. And I am going to use that as the first line of a novel someday, one of these days, because it's just too good. Gotta finish the first novel first, though, which will take me God knows how long. In between all the paintings and the poetry and the videos. Gosh, there's just so many things I want to make all the time. I think about, there's this quote by Martha Graham that I've always loved where she describes this drive to make things that is sometimes uncomfortable as a divine dissatisfaction. And I love it. I love it because I am on the one hand, always dissatisfied because there's always something else I want to make. Um, Not insofar as it like ruins, a present moment. Like I was enjoying making this painting, but as soon as it's done, there's something else on my mind. And in fact, there's three other something else's on my mind. And there's never enough time to do them all. And it's, I think a gift. What a joy, what a delight that I get to do stuff like that. But also, yeah, it can be really frustrating at times, So I think a lot about my companion, my divine dissatisfaction. Um, yeah, got to make it a friend lest it drive me crazy. Well, any more than I already am, as I sit here painting sharks. I think the next painting I make, well, I want to figure out how to paint the sharks in a way that is like sharper and darker and scarier because even this painting is like kind of lovely and sort of pretty and I love that I can't help but do that, but I'm also curious to push myself and make something that kind of conveys that like the feeling I get when I think about, you know, a shark breaching up out of the water like this. Like it would be, a feeling of terror or something. But how does one paint that?